20 on me, case emergency. Ain't no cap in my rap. Real I know it's the truck. More profit mean extra. Emerald white out full of pressure. That cereal milk smoking right. But that Obama rent some special. Kansas City, I'm a chief. Shout out to K5 on new one. Country thuggin', I was hustling. I always had it on me. Booming like OJ the Juice. Till a nigga told on me. From now on, it's relentless. Ain't no love, we ain't friendly. If she want me on him. No the law, she get the business. No the law, still the motto. Empire.
Hello. Welcome in. This is the Birds of a Feather podcast with your boy Q City. We're going to dive deep into the Falcons game last week against the Saints. We're going to look ahead to next week versus Dallas. Go around the league in the indivision. Look at our betting points and give me props. And then do some city talk at the end. So come on with me and enjoy this ride. So the first thing we're going to get to is this game recap. We had a 27-25 win over New Orleans. And if you listen to the press conference after the game, I think Cordell Patterson said it best. We got to stop giving our fans heart attacks. That's really what it boils down to. We had a huge lead in this game and then coughed it up. And eventually, I think that wears on the psyche of your team. But I am very happy that we're turning the page from getting to a point to where when we're letting up these big leads, we're losing the game. And when we're letting up big leads and winning the game. So let's go ahead and get into it. On the Falcons' first drive, we had a drop by Pitts. It was the first play of the game. You saw him. He beat his man clean off the line. Had a drop. We get a big play by Patterson. And then we get a punt instead of a 57-yard field goal. I kind of understood it. You're in New Orleans. You kind of want to play the field position game. I felt like we should at least try for the points there. Kuz got more than enough leg, and as you can see, he's very clutch. New Orleans gets the ball on their first drive. We blitz on third down, force a punt. They really didn't get anything going, get anything moving on their plays. On our next drive, we got a big play to Pitts, a big play to Patterson. Those two were extremely crucial throughout the whole day. And both of these were on third down. Then on our last third down, we had kind of a bad call, but we were able to get a field goal in the red zone. We're up 3-0, right? Saints get the ball back. They get marred by penalties. Just immediately shut down. I think at one point they were in like 1st and 25 or 1st and 35. They end up having to punt the ball. We get the ball back, and we go 3 and out. This has kind of been a theme in the day of like not capitalizing on opportunities. But the only reason this 3 and out kind of pissed me off in the first half was because of the third down play. On 3rd and 8, you run a screen to Hurts. It didn't make any sense. And it went absolutely nowhere. The next drive that the Saints get, they tried AJ. And I'm going to talk about him a little bit more later. But AJ made a great play on the ball. Had a huge play on it on third down. They go for it on 4th. Hawkins ends up making a good play. Bam. They're down. We get the ball. Once again, not capitalizing on opportunities. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you on the Falcons' next drive, they got screwed a little bit. Gage had that first down. But that doesn't excuse the 4th down call. Running straight up the gut with Mike, and he ain't did nothing all day. And you know he wasn't going to do nothing. The Saints defense, their run defense was stout all day. Part of it can be attributed to the offensive line. Part of it can be attributed to the fact we don't truly have a feature back. But either way, in that moment, bad play call. So they get the ball. We end up getting them immediately at a 3 and out. Let me go back real quick. I don't have a problem with going for it on 4th down in that instance. I feel like that in itself was a good call. I have a problem with the play call in general. So, once the Saints get a 3 and out, they kick the ball. It was a great kick. They pinned us inside the 10. I want to say either at the 7 or 8 yard line. We put together what me personally was feeling was the best drive of the day. 3 third down conversions all the way down the field, 92 yards. So they had to get us at the 8 yard line. 92 yards. It was a work of beauty. The only problem I had was once again a coaching error. Because once we got down to the red zone, it was very questionable with the timeouts we were using. We used one at 30 seconds, got stopped inside the lines, and used our last timeout with 16 seconds left. A New Orleans player ended up getting hurt, which gave us our timeout back, which was the only thing that allowed us to go for a touchdown in that matter. The way we used timeouts on that last drive, having all three, it was not effective at all. We were able to go into halftime 10-0 because Matt threw a very, very nice ball to Zacchaeus. They highlighted it on the broadcast, but that ball was a linebacker was cutting in, a linebacker was over the top, and a safety was covering him coming in from the right. So he threw it in between two guys with help over top, down, low and away, just right over the goal line. Zacchaeus ran a great route with it too. Stopped on a dime, turned around, made himself available, and went down low for it. So all in all, that was a great play. That was a make me right thing. And, I'm going to discuss that point a little later in City Talk. But that was a good play. Great execution. Love the fact we're up 10-0 going into halftime. Some of the points that were brought out at halftime, Saints had 5 drops. And when a team is like fumbling like that, you need to pounce on them. Take advantage of it. The fact we were only up 10-0, it wasn't the worst thing in the world because we're on the road up 10-0 against a division opponent. It's just, I definitely expected us to have more points at that point, especially considering how the game was going. And at that point, we were 6 of 10 on third down. Even if you take off the 3 out of 3 on the last drive, we were 3 for 7. Like, we were moving the ball pretty well and consistently getting third downs. But like I harped on last week, we scored before half. We didn't defer. We didn't win. They deferred to us. But they made the same mistake that we made last week. They punted the ball back, didn't get the ball before halftime, and you allowed the other team to score. So we scored before halftime, and we're able to basically negate the fact that they deferred to us, make them pay for it. Coming back from halftime, they got the ball. They tried AJ twice. He had 2 pass breakups on this drive alone. They hit a field goal about 40 some odd yards. So they're up. So we're still up 10-3 at this point. The Falcons get the ball. First drive after the half. 82 yards, ending in a touchdown. We had 2 huge plays on this drive. One long pass to Zacchaeus, and then a nice pass to Hurts that got us into the red zone down to the 2. Then a beautiful play call. I will give Arthur Smith props on this because you've seen Tannehill do it a bunch of times, and Tannehill caps it off with doing his little Jordan finger roll thing once he scores a rushing touchdown off these plays. But you bring in an extra tackle and tight end on the opposite side. You suck them in with a hard play action, and it is a one-man route essentially, but Pitts is so fast that he was able to get across the formation and seal off, take the safety with him to the corner, and Matt basically walked in. It was a bootleg rushing touchdown. It was a beautiful play call, and I will 100% give him props on that one. Saints get the ball, and this was a mental error, and it really, really pissed me off. They bring Taysom Hill into the game on 4th and 2, and Davison jumps. Despite the fact, let's just forget about the fact that he didn't have a great day. He was getting pushed, bullied, and blown up at the line because the Saints getting behind was the only reason they stopped running. They were able to get almost anything they wanted in the running game today. They got behind, they had to pass. It totally threw their rhythm off on that. But on 4th and 2, you trying to jump. What are you going to accomplish there? It's a willpower thing at that point. So if you stay steady, the center didn't move his hand on the ball, no head movement, none of that. Taysom didn't even clap his hands when he jumped. All indicators that the ball is about to be snapped. He just thought he was going to time the snap count and jumped. It kept the drive alive, and they were able to go down, kick a field goal. So 17-6. We get the ball back. It's basically a 3-and-out. We had a play to Patterson, got a first down, and then 3 straight downs of nothing. Had to punt the ball. Decent punt. Decent punt. Got him down to, I think, the 15. One thing I will say about our special teams, because our kicker came from the Chiefs. He's got a strong leg. He outkicks our coverage a lot of times and allows for really good punt returns because of it. And I thought, like, being in a dome, maybe he's like really used to that Kansas City wind, having to put a little extra behind the kick. His directional kicks seem to be a bit lacking. And the fact that, like I said, he outkicks our coverage allows for dangerous punt returners to almost flip field position, as we saw later in the game, because they had a really good punt return. Hill comes in, completes a pass, and then we get the strip sack by me. We get the strip sack. Means returns it, takes it down. We're like, all right, yeah, we're doing really good. One play drive, Zakiya scores another touchdown. Sliding, coming down. Matt delivers the ball under pressure, getting hit. It was a good play call. It was a good play design. And the offensive line held up as much as they could. Matt slid protection. You saw him calling the audible right before the play started, sliding the protections. He pointed out the guy that was going to blitz. And if I'm not mistaken, he pointed at the guy who ended up hitting him. So they knew what was coming, and they had the play call for it. So at this point, we are up 24-6 with 8 minutes left, and it is an 18-point lead. And as you see, I've been going drive by drive. So I have every drive down here on what exactly transpired to have a game-winning field goal. When at this point, we are up 24-6 with 8 minutes left. So let's go ahead. Saints next drive, we go into a soft zone. It's a soft cover 2 shell. Like, you take everything underneath. We're not going to let you beat us deep. Atlanta does it. They call it prevent defense, but like Jimmy Johnson said, you go into prevent defense, it'll prevent you from winning. They go into this defense, and the whole point of letting people complete everything in front of you was you just tackle. Keep them in bounds and keep the clock running, make them take a lot of time off the clock. They were able to, in 6 plays, 2 minutes, get down the field, and then they ran. Sean Payton is a genius offensively. Like, he does everything he needs to do offensively. He ran a high-low concept on the right side of the field with running back action to the left, knowing that Kamara was going to suck the defense that way, and put AJ Terrell in just not only did he put him in a blender, but he put him in a position where you were wrong either way. So it's a high-low concept with a wide receiver coming from across the formation into the flat, and then the other wide receiver going to the pylon. And so if you take the high guy, they're going to hit you in the flat for the touchdown. Even if you try to recover, the guy can reach for the end zone. At the very least, you're giving up a first down. And if you take the flat, he's just going to tap you at the top of the pylon, top of the end zone. And so AJ Terrell's just caught in no man's land. He tries to sneak toward the flat, throws over his head, back of the end zone. It is what it is. I don't consider that a bad play by him. It was more so a great play design because the action took the safety away and what could have been the help in that high-low concept. AJ really had the flat responsibility on that. So here's where the problem lies. They get that. It's 24-13. Atlanta gets the ball back. They go 3 and out. They kick the ball. He outkicks the coverage. There's a huge punt return by number 11, and then there's a penalty on the punt. That puts them in great field position. Then we get a pass interference, and then we get a roughing the passer. And here's my problem with the roughing the passer. Because a lot of people was like, oh, what's he supposed to do? How are you supposed to do anything? Aluakon, couldn't have did anything else. Here's what you could have did. And here's what you're taught to do all the time. Drive your body through the offensive player. Don't leave your feet. He left his feet trying to tip the ball, I'm guessing, instead of just putting his hands up or wrapping around the body and then letting go. Because here's the thing, there's a concerted effort to protect the quarterback. So nothing good could have came from leaving your feet, right? Like, if you want to say it's a bad call, fine, cool, it's a bad call. But there's nothing good that could have came from leaving your feet, strictly because if you were going to block the ball, put your hands up and still come in full speed. You're either going to block the ball or you're not. But immediately, you still have to get your hands down because you can't hit him in the head. So the best point of action is to come up, look at what you're hitting, and wrap him up. Wrap him up and drive through his body. That is the way they teach you to tackle. This is how they're calling it. So for me, looking at it, that's a dumb play. That's a dumb play. You had no reason to leave your feet. It was a bad call because as he jumped, the guy ducked, but it was a dumb play by Luakan. It was a bad defensive play. Kamara runs easily, gets in touchdown off the left side. He basically had a convoy. They failed on the 2-point conversion, which would have made it a 3-point game. So it's 24-19. We come back out. Cam Jordan lined up on the right side. I told you he's an impact player. Knew he was going to make a play today. Didn't know when it was coming. They actually said on the broadcast, he hadn't made a sack today, as they lined up for this play. Now, granted, he didn't line up over Matthews. He lined up on the right side. But he beat him good and knocked the clean mess out of Matt. Now, Matthews did a great job on Davenport a good bit of the day today because he didn't have an amazing day. All in all, though, that drive was a 3-and-out. We kicked the ball back to them. Stills ends up getting the touchdown on Moreau on a simple out route because they were able to get down the field. All in all, in total, for the last 8 minutes of the game, our defense was on the field for 6 of those minutes. All 3 of the drives that we had back to back of 3-and-out took a total of 1 minute off the clock of game time. So now everybody's butts are clenched tight. The Superdome is rocking. We're like, oh my God, we're down 24-25. This is another Super Bowl moment. All these things going through your head. And Matt and Cordell hook up for an awesome play. Street down the sideline. You see him calling the audible right before it because he noticed the man-to-man coverage. If you remember last week, I talked about the fact that Saints love to play press man coverage. That is what they do. That is their bread and butter. Dennis Allen has always stuck on that. Even when he was back in the Oakland head coach. That's how he learned defense. That's how he plays it. So if you know it's coming and you know you have an elite athlete on the outside, like a Cordell, like someone who would have helped this week, Calvin Ridley, you have that guy. You allow the press. Don't let him get his hands on you. Take him up the sideline. And Matt immediately recognized it. Let it fly. Cordell stayed in bounds. Everybody will be like, oh, he got down there, run the ball 3 times, and kick the field goal. Right before that, I do want to just put this part in. Mike Davis fumbled on the first running play down there. He is terrible for us right now. They come in, kneel the ball twice. Koo kicks the field goal, up 27-25, game's over. I love the timeout situation in that matter because you could see him mouthing, give me the timeout at 3. Wanted to leave absolutely no time on the clock. So that was good. I loved it. The only thing I would have said in that situation, because you had 2 timeouts, instead of kneeling the ball again on 3rd down, attempt the field goal on 3rd down so that if something happens, you don't get the play in, the ball slips, anything like that, you can fall on it and then call another timeout to kick the ball on 4th down. But that'll come with time. You see like the great elite coaches thinking that way. He's still a first-year head coach. He's going to get there with time. So I'm going to get all the negatives out the way for like my game takeaways. 1, we lost another lead. 18 points with 8 minutes left. This is ridiculous. And Dean Pease going into that soft zone, that prevent defense. You're playing not to lose instead of you're playing not to lose instead of to win. And we're not playing complimentary ball because in the second half, Almost every single drive was a 3-and-out. We had 3-and-outs in the second half with momentum building on the other side and then causing penalties. We had one sustained drive, which was the 82-yard drive. And the last drive with that huge play to Patterson, that's not really a sustained drive. You know what I'm saying? It's a drive that ended in points. It was a critical drive that helped us win the game. But all in all, that drive was 4 plays. One of them was a big play. One of them was a fumble and 2 kneel downs. It's not a sustained drive. It wasn't the 92 or 81-yard drives we had. But hell, even the 60-yard drives that end in field goals is what we needed in the second half. We could not put anything together in that second half. I have no idea why you had Felipe Franks in the game. Like, that was just for what? Both plays that you had him, he lost yards. It was stupid. It was bad play calling. Patterson, he had 9 carries for 10 yards. The running game was just completely ineffective today. Mike Davis had 9 carries for 13 yards. That is a 1.4 average. Anything under 2 is a net negative in running the ball, which means basically all 9 times we gave him that ball, it was a loss for the offense. His longest run of the day was 5 yards, which means you went 8 for 8. You take out that 1 carry in the 5 yards, you went 8 for 8. It is 1 yard giving you the ball. There's only 4 downs. You're completely ineffective. Like, there's absolutely nothing we can do. And with Arthur Smith's offense, you need a dominant running game to set up the play action in the deep shots. We don't have that. We do not have a running back capable of doing it. And we need Cordell in the passing game right now. He took a lot of snaps at wide receiver this week because we needed him there. And like, Mike Davis can't carry the load, and I'm not sure we have a running back who can on the roster. But it's not all doom and gloom, because it is easier to learn from a win than it is to learn from a loss. And we did win. Patterson was a great threat in the receiving game this week. He had 6 targets, 6 receptions for 126. That's what you need. I throw you the ball 6 times, you catch it 6 times. 100% catch rate. Pitts, little slow. He had 7 targets, 3 receptions, little under 50%, but 62 yards, and he was very helpful in the game. Zacchaeus, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 2 of them were touchdowns. You can't ask for much more from your third receiver. Russell Gage also had a pretty good day. He kind of slipped into that possession receiver role because he was the guy helping us get a lot of first downs, even with that bad call. Grady had a coming out game. And granted, he only had 5 tackles and 1 pass breakup. No tackles for loss, but if you watch the game, Grady was extremely valuable. He was pressuring the pocket. They moved him along the line, which I have been asking to do. Don't constantly line him up at that right D tackle spot. Put him on the left D tackle spot and let him take the double team of the left guard in the center. Or instead of the right guard in the center, depending on which guard you feel is least equipped to handle a one-on-one. Which is why I was frustrated that Davidson didn't have a good day, because Grady was taking double teams all day and blowing up their offensive line. As a team, we had 1 sack, 5 hits, 2 tackles for loss, 10 pass breakups, and Hawkins was serviceable. I've been bagging on the safety play, but he really surprised me this game. He has 2 interceptions in the past 2 games. On that 4th down, it wasn't a great play. It was more of a drop, but he was able to disrupt him at the line. He's serviceable at safety. I still look to upgrade that position, but he is serviceable. The main positive that I took from this game, and I will continue to sing his gospel whenever I possibly can. AJ Terrell is turning into one of the best corners in the league. I'll stick by that, put a stamp on it, put my name on it. He was targeted 7 times, because I don't count the high-low concept, because that was a break in coverage, and if his responsibility was the flat, he covered the flat. So he was targeted 7 times. He allowed 1 reception and had 3 pass breakups. This man is out here balling. And this is after the past 2 weeks, he hasn't necessarily been targeted. I think his name needs to be up there with the Jair Alexanders, the Stephon Gilmores, the Marshawn Lattimores that I even talked about last week. A.J. Terrell is on that level. If we can get a serviceable corner on the other side of him, because I like Moreau, but I don't. He's not a top flight, top echelon corner. Which, in all truth, honestly, you're probably only going to get one of those on your team. But if we get a second guy who's more serviceable, maybe move him to the slot, I think we're going to have a secondary to be dealt with. But we've got a cornerstone piece. He's turned into a shutdown corner. He's going to be one of the best in the league. A.J. Terrell is balling right now. And I was one of the people. I said it in my first podcast. I was one of the people. The only film I had ever truly seen of him was his last game versus LSU. Getting toasted on both sides. Getting toasted on both sides of the bun. Justin Jefferson out there doing him dirty. But it just goes to show those guys who are scouts, professional scouts, they look at all the tape. And they don't just look at a bad game with a transcendent quarterback on a crazy college team. They're like, no, overall, this guy is a great talent and we can coach him up better. So, hey, DQ and Thomas Dimitroff, they had a good one on that one. They scouted properly. They picked the right player because A.J. Terrell is a beast. Also, for all the crap that he usually takes, Matt Ryan had a great day. 23 of 30, 343, 2 touchdowns, one of them rushing, no turnovers in any way, shape, or form, and he ran for a couple first downs. Matt had a great day. The only thing I would really say is in the second half, those constant 3 and outs, really it's just the 3 and outs and not being able to capitalize on momentum. Momentum's a real thing in a football game. And as the team gets it and the crowd gets behind it, you got to be able to snuff those out and stop those things. And so, after they score and it's 24-13, you can't go 3 and out there. You can't take a sack there. You got to make a play. After it's 24-19, you got to come out and get some type of sustained drive. Even if it's field goal, you got to have some type of sustained drive. Hell, even getting a couple first downs and punting them. You got to have some type of sustained drive after two scores unanswered, because 18 points is a lot to just allow completely unanswered. He made the big play at the end when it counted, and so it was still a great day, in my opinion. It's always easier to learn from a win than a loss. So we look at this one, we take the good from it, we take the bad from it, we move on to next week. Next week, our opponent is the Dallas Cowboys. We're playing them in Dallas, and to be honest with you, if we were playing them in Atlanta, it'd probably be a 70-30 split on Cowboy fans, because they travel well. But we're playing them in Jerry World, and it's our first time playing them since that huge meltdown last year. Like that onside kick recovery, field goal. They had a huge fourth quarter comeback. And like I said, seeing us have these close games and them ending in wins this year instead of losses is not only good for my heart, soul, and overall week, but it's also good for a team psyche. You look at it, Tyron Smith is out this week, and the line really struggled against Denver. They lost bad. The score was 30-16, and you're like, it's a 14-point game, 2 touchdowns. Like, no, they were down 30-0 at one point. They scored 2 touchdowns in like the final minute with the 2-point conversions, and it was bad. It was bad. Prescott had a terrible day. He was only sacked once, but he was hurried like all day. To be honest, completely honest, it's very hard to get anything from this game, from this film. And the only reason I say that is because Dallas was so bad in this game. They did things they normally don't do. They got out of the running game extremely early. They didn't sustain long drives, which they had done previously in every other game. And they're a super explosive offense, and they weren't able to do so until Denver was completely in prevent. The defense was completely torched by Teddy Bridgewater, and it was really just bomb plays and being able to flip the field, because Dallas went for it 4 times on 4th down, or 3 times on 4th down, and didn't get any of them. turn the ball over on downs. Dan Quinn is their coordinator right now, their defensive coordinator, and we know what type of defense he plays. And I know people are going to be like, oh, yeah, no, he plays a crappy defense. No, Dan Quinn was actually the defensive coordinator at the Legion of Boom. That's how he got the job with Atlanta. Granted, Gus Bradley built that defense, and he was a complete disaster down in Jacksonville. But when Dan Quinn took it over and they went to back-to-back Super Bowls, then he came down to Atlanta. Like, Dan Quinn, he's a good D coordinator. You can't take that away from him. So he plays that Seattle cover 3 style defense, and it allows for extremely physical corners to press on the receivers. It allows the safeties to cover. It requires the safeties to cover a lot of ground and your linebackers to make plays and tackles in space. It's not asking too much of guys, but then again, it may be asking too much for guys to do in the roles they're in. And what I mean by that is, if you just have a third section of the field, right? But then I run a 2-man concept to your side, you don't have safety help and you don't have a linebacker underneath. Kind of what AJ Terrell got caught in this week. You can play on those things a lot in this base defense, and they don't blitz much. That was always a problem in Atlanta, but they're really stuck on gap assignment, space assignment, and making the tackle, making the play. So we've got a couple Falcons coming back. Keanu Neal, he's playing like this hybrid linebacker safety thing going on, and Demonte KZ, who's a free safety. And I never thought I would miss the days where I would have both those guys in my secondary, but our secondary leaves a bit to be desired. So I consider them decent players. Knowing their weaknesses, Matt might be able to manipulate them a little bit, especially he's going to have a lot of practice going against this defense. I think people are betting high on Dallas because they had a really bad outing and people are expecting them to back off. I don't think people truly understand that Matt knows this defense inside and out. He practiced against it for, 4 years? So I see him doing pretty good against it. My impact players, Parsons, Prescott, and then going to kind of cheat on this last one, the whole wide receiving core. Parsons had a monster day, even in a blowout. He had 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 3 quarterback hits, 5 hurries. Whether on the line or as a stand-up linebacker, this man is playing ridiculous. And with Lawrence out, they're putting him on the line more. He is abusing tackles. Okay, like he's a physical freak. He's getting to the quarterback at will. And so to have this guy on the line, I think they might line him up on the right side because Jake Matthews has been playing at, dare I say, knock on wood, a Pro Bowl level this year. So they might line him up on the right side and allow him to just go one-on-one and see what he could do. And that is kind of a scary thought considering how our offensive line held up this week. Prescott, I do expect him to bounce back. Like, I don't expect like a just complete crap show of a game again because, he's the MVP candidate coming into this game. But the reason I expect him to bounce back is because of the third impact, and that's the whole wide receiving core. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Wilson. I forgot his first name, but Wilson, the kid from Boise State. Those 3 guys are multi-dimensional. Each give you something completely different within the offense, and they can attack you in multiple ways. So first you got Lamb. Dak loves to hit Lamb with crossing routes across the field, especially when Dak, feels the pressure in his pocket and rolls out to the right. He is deadly. He missed on one against Denver. Well, he missed on 2. One of them was just like a complete throwaway. But the second one, CD immediately, they were on the same page. He turned upfield and he let him out just a little too far. Because if they connected on that one, that was a touchdown. Their idiosyncrasies are completely on point. It's like they read each other's mind on those scramble drills. And that has hurt Atlanta multiple times this year. With Amari, he's damn near strictly a possession receiver at this point. Like, you need 7 yards, he's gonna get you 8. You need 6, he's gonna get you 7. Like, he goes right to the sticks, and even if you put a hit on him, he gets to the sticks. Like, he gets that first down. And him with CD, and you having the, okay, I can take the underneath route and just get us a fresh set of downs, or I can go over the top of you, has been really confounding defenses this year. Then you add this Wilson kid, who is just like a human joystick, highlight reel guy, who's just making catches across the middle, drag routes, option points, headed toward the sideline. He's everything Cole Beasley was, just hyperactive. Like, he looks like Dallas's greatest 7th round pick. That offensive unit is extremely talented, and I see them giving Atlanta huge problems. Dean Pease has a lot on his plate this week. And if you look at it last week, Trevor Siemian went 25 for 41 for 249, 2 touchdowns. Kamara and Ingram had 93 yards on 22 attempts. That's like, over 4 yards a carry. So you weren't stopping the run, and you overly weren't stopping the pass. They just dictated by short passes. Well, Dallas has the personnel to hit on a lot of those short passes. Last week we only had 2 sacks. So Dallas offensive line, though they may not be extremely talented, I don't necessarily feel like we have the personnel to exploit that. Because hell, I felt like the Panthers was our get right game and we had almost no pressure on Darnold. Then again, that was because Darnold was a mobile QB, same as Dak. Dak can get out the pocket. Dak can make plays with his feet and make plays with his arm. How I expect us to attack this defense is attack the seams, run the ball, and take timely shots. Bridgewater and Ryan about have the same arm, and they were able to capitalize in those ways. Mike McCarthy had a terrible day coaching, like a really shitty day coaching. And I don't see him being able to do that 2 weeks in a row. His clock management is iffy at best, but we've seen, as I touched on, Arthur Smith can be a little iffy with the clock management. But it was just how he went for 4th downs, when he went for them, and the play calls on those 4th downs. I don't see it repeating, coming up next week. But overall, even though the line is open with Dallas favored at 10. And I think that might be at 9.5 now, when I'm recording this, but it was at 10 when it opened. So people expect the Cowboys to blow the Falcons out. I don't expect the game to be that far out of hand. I'm looking forward to it this week. I'm pretty sure we can keep it close, keep it competitive, and maybe even eke out a win. Indivision is sponsored by Courtney Hagen's Credit Repair. Bad credit ain't cute. Get your credit right at CourtneyHagans.com. All right, so we're looking at Indivision. The Bucks, they were off this week, sitting at 6-2. We gave those lousy Saints an L. They fall to 5-3, and we bump up to 4-4, third in the division. The Panthers took a loss this week, so they're down to 4-5 versus the Patriots. And if you look at the playoff picture, you got the Lions at the complete bottom, and I don't know why I still mention them other than the fact that they're in the NFC. You got 4 teams sitting with 3 wins. The Seahawks, 49ers, Vikings, and Bears. The Vikings just lost to the Ravens. The Bears play tonight versus the Steelers. I'm going to record this early, so I'm not saying the outcome of that game yet. I expect the Steelers to win because, weirdly, every team that lost this week, outside of, the divisional game with the Falcons and Saints, lost to an AFC opponent. So, if you're going to take a gambling line on it, take the Steelers. In the A spot is the Panthers, who are a game behind us. We are a playoff team as of today in the 7th spot at 4-4. Saints are above us at 5-3, so that loss was critically important. And if you remember me saying early, we have to sweep them for our playoff chances to stay where they need to stay, especially considering at best we can split with the Panthers and Bucks. The Rams are in the 5 spot still because they took just an embarrassing loss on Sunday night to the Titans on a week where the Cardinals were sitting Kyler Murray and D-Hop. Definitely could have made up ground and took some took the reins of that division, but hey, they fumbled the bag. That's on them. Cowboys took a bad loss as well, 6-2, so they couldn't leapfrog the Bucks. Bucks at 3, Panthers at 2, took a loss against the Chiefs, but without A-Rod, the vaccination status or whatever, I don't have enough mental capacity to go into a whole argument on whether or not to be vaccinated. I just know that he wasn't, and it hurt his team this week. And then overall, you got the Cardinals still at the 1 spot, took a win versus the 49ers this week. We're looking good, playoff team, keep it moving. Even with a loss to Dallas, because pretty much every team beneath us lost last week, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But you don't want to say that, wins and losses don't really matter. And the Seahawks are getting Russell Wilson back this week. So we're going to look forward to press on. But as of now, we are playoff bound. And now on to my favorite portion, the betting portion. Give me props. We're going to look at how I did last week overall in the season. I bet on the Sharp app. That's where I get all my props and line bets. I say anyone, go bet on that app. I give out my picks at QCity11 on Twitter. You can follow me at QCity11 on Instagram, QCity Media on YouTube as well. I'm going to start streaming the games, and QCity Leo on TikTok. So entering the week, I was 3-5 because if you remember, I had an 0-4 week last week. It was terrible. It was all bad. It was all bad last week. But this week, I did not parlay, which was always good, because I went 3-1 this week. And that puts me at 6-6 overall, 500 for the year. Hey, we all good. Professional bettors like to hit 600, or was it 650? Professional bettors like to hit 650, 65%. So I'm getting there. I ain't gonna be a professional though, but I'm getting there. Regardless, my 4 bets for last week. Ingram, 28.5 yards rushing. He had 29 in the first quarter. That was an easy one. I knew the Falcons' run defense was going to be a problem, going to be hard to, stop this Saints run game, and their offensive line are some bullies. We really don't have the defensive personnel along the line outside of Grady to stop them. So I saw them being in between the tackles, hard running team, and Ingram is that back for that. Kamara, he is pretty powerful, but he's more receiving and outside the numbers. So Ingram hit it very early. That was an easy cash. Aluakon, 10.5 tackles, took the under. Saved by the bell on this one because he had 9 tackles and he would have had 10 had it been a sack, but he had 9. So it was an easy under. If he got 10, it would still qualify as an under. I love those halves. You know what I'm saying? It makes it easier to bet on. So he got 9. That's an under. We're good there. Then my next hit, which was just awesome. Cool. 1.5 over on the field goals. And he only had 1 field goal for a great portion of the game. And I was getting a little nervous on whether or not this one was going to hit. And it hits on the game winner. Just chef's kiss. Mwah. It was beautiful. The one that didn't hit, I'm actually glad in terms of the game that it didn't. I took the over on Matt Ryan getting 0.5 interceptions. I expected him to at least throw 1 pick. He did not. Played a very clean, very solid game. Super proud of it. So I went 3-1 this week. And it was 3-1 in a Falcons win. 0-4 in a Falcons loss it hurts. It stinks. It sounds bad coming out your mouth. You know what I'm saying? But 3-1 in a Falcons win, I'll take it every time. I released the next bit of my props on Thursday because that's when they drop on the Sharp app, and I'll release my 4 props for next week's game. And I put out all my basketball over unders and spread totals on QCity11 on Twitter before each game. So check me out. Okay, so on City Talk this week, I've got basically one topic that's all encompassing about basically the new coaching staff, how things are looking with them, and how my outlook is for them going forward. And then I've got just some rapid fire questions that I've gotten at the end from people I've either talked to about the podcast or messaged me at QCity11. I encourage fan participation. I want to learn from you guys. In City Talk, I usually read out things that I hear from people. So, like I said, hit me up, QCity11 on Instagram or QCity11 on Twitter, and I'm more than welcome to answer your questions or read them out on the show. So I'm gonna just, some things that I've gotten consistently, I'm gonna just go through on rapid fire. So the first thing is about Terry Fontenot, Coach Arthur Smith, and Dean Pease. I was kind of critical of Coach Smith this week, especially with his inability to fully function on the timeout situations, some of the offensive play calls, especially with him being an offensive coach. I don't like the fact that when you don't have the personnel to do what you are usually accustomed to doing, Matt Ryan isn't as athletic as Ryan Tannehill. Mike Davis is in no way, shape, or form close to a Derrick Henry. And Calvin Ridley or Cordell Patterson, neither is AJ Smith. No, not Smith. AJ, number 11 for Tennessee. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Neither one of them. And so you don't have this personnel, and you continue to call plays as though you do. Now, granted, I get it. Do what works for you. Do what got you there. I just think that I want to see more creativity in his play calling. Now, I will give him props. In the Miami game, I saw extremely creative play calling. I love to see him evolve more. And we might have to take the whole timeout situations out of his hand to just completely allow him time for play calling. I feel like he gets a little bit tight, especially once momentum starts to turn on him. When Matt Ryan took those 2 sacks, yes, the line broke down, but he called deep developing plays on both those. I don't understand why in that situation, because at that point, all you really needed was a field goal to ice the game. You were killing them on short passes for a good bit of the day. Outside of a bad spot from Gage, you were getting first downs consistently. I have to remember he is a rookie head coach, but he's been an offensive coordinator for a long time, and he calls the plays. He's fiery. He's persuasive on the sideline. You see the guys getting up for him, and he's winning the games we lost last year. So it's hard to be super critical of him. But this team giving up big leads because we're not playing complementary football it's a tale as old as time for the Falcons. Dean Pease and the defense. It is hard to adequately judge him because I don't feel like we have the defensive pieces in place. I feel like we have a good piece at each point in our defense and maybe an elite piece in AJ Terrell. But Grady is good to great. Debo's good. And I consider AJ Terrell might be elite. And if you want any ranking on how I go, unplayable, bad, decent, good, great, elite. Davidson is playable. Our safeties are almost unplayable. Like they're bad. They're bad. They're almost unplayable. And Moreau on the other side is he's decent. He's a decent player. Aluakon is decent. I wouldn't necessarily call him good. Our left outside linebacker position, which is rotated, has been unplayable. It's just a body on the field. And both ends are bad. Both ends are bad. And how I look at it is when you have that type of defense, you can scheme as much as you want to all day. You don't have the personnel for it. We have to build up through the draft and free agency. And that brings me to Fontenot and how he's built this team so far. They worked hand in hand, him and Arthur Smith, in picking one another, coming in together. And Fontenot did not get him the personnel he needed on the offensive end. Now, he was responsible for helping build the Saints roster. And for years now, if you haven't been paying attention, the Saints roster has been considered one of the best in the NFL. Granted, Michael Thomas is out this year, but offensively and defensively, they have hit some home runs. I haven't really seen that in this last draft. So when you look at it, of course, Kyle Pitts, like we got him, generational talent, all this and that, and you knew we were trading Julio. I love him for clearing up the cap, but you traded Julio away. We get Pitts. He's going to be this big play threat. If you look at it, numbers very similar to Julio with Matt Ryan in his first year. I have no doubt that Pitts is going to be exactly who he needs to be. We've got Jalen Mayfield, who couldn't win the job at tackle, but he's starting at left guard because of McGarry out, and he started from day one. You know what I'm saying? So I like him. He's managed to stay healthy. He plays like a rookie at times, but we're not prioritizing the interior line. You know what I'm saying? It was a first 3-round pick, and that's where the meat of your team comes from. Then we've got Grant in the secondary, who's a rotational piece at safety and has played some nickel back. We drafted a punt returner, Avery Williams, because that's the only place we've really seen him. And then Hall played some nickel. We took some late round picks on the D-line, Ogundeje. I forget how to say his name. Yeah, the D-lineman. Y'all know who I'm talking about there. And he has actually made some plays this year. I'm actually pretty surprised with how he's moving and what he's doing this year. And then we drafted Graham. And he's rotational, but on that scale that I said earlier, like he's bad. Like he's not even a decent player yet. So overall, halfway through the season, and you give rookies time, because usually in the second half of the season is when they're gonna turn up. But just halfway through the season, in terms of looking like rookies, like this isn't a great draft class. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that 5th and 6th rounders are getting rotational spots on the team and contributing either attributes to you're the world's best drafter in the world, like in the history of people. You're the world's best drafter, or your team is very devoid of talent. And I'm going to take the second one, almost assuredly, because I don't necessarily feel like this team had a lot of talent and we let a lot of talent go. We let pretty much our whole secondary go. Isaiah Oliver went down with a knee injury. Our linebackers, we let 2 of them go, and basically redid our whole defensive line around Grady Jarrett. So I'm interested in how he's building this. I think we're definitely going to need 2 drafts to see how he does, and these rookies are about to turn the corner. Overall, I think that the coaching staff in general is just new. They're new, and I'm willing to give a lot of leeway because they're new. I want to see more of them, but just the fact that last week we were 500, 4-4, like we mid. You know what I'm saying? Like, ain't gas, it's mid. So you just got to understand and take it for how it is. Overall, it's left me feeling pretty blah. Hopefully second half of the season, we're going to turn it around. Well, 17 games is kind of weird to say, after 9 weeks is halfway through instead of 8. I guess halftime of the 8th game is halfway through. But regardless, after week 9, we're 4-4, and we're able to say that we're still in it. We're in a playoff race, and he's building a decent roster. All right, so just a few rapid fire things that have been asked of me. What is the song? The song is called Emergency by Jay Mitch. He's a very talented artist. I know him. He allowed me to use the song for the intro and outro, and I'm extremely thankful for it. So if you want to go follow him on Apple Music, Spotify, his name is Jay Mitch, and the song is called Emergency. So go ahead and run the streams up on that one. Did you play offense or defense? I played defense. Outside linebacker to be specific. If I ever lined up on offense, it would be tight end, but I am not that big. And I actually hated lifting weights a lot. So, going any further in football wasn't going to happen. Those who don't play coach, and those who can't coach commentate. And so that's why I'm here. Get on YouTube. I will be getting on YouTube under the name Q City Media. I'm going to, in the next coming months, be doing another basketball podcast with a friend of mine, and it will be on there. It's very rough in the works. Haven't even got a name for it yet, But basically, all the podcasts I do will be under the name Q City Media on YouTube. Why no Bulldogs? Why no Braves? Okay, so just to be truthful with you, one, I am a Braves fan. I am a decently sized Braves fan. 164 games is a lot. I do not have the mental bandwidth to truly go into the numbers of baseball, because like basketball is pretty nerdy and has a lot of numbers with it that are associated with it. And I love, football, Pro Football Focus really crunches all the numbers, but baseball is almost entirely just numbers. And as much as I love it, I can't devote that much time to it. I'm married, I have kids, I have a job. Like, even devoting as much time as I do to the podcast to delve as deep as I am, like it requires a lot of time, and I don't have that for baseball. And it's 164 games, 162 games, so there's always another game. So it's kind of, with football, 16 games, 17 games now, each game has importance and meaning, and delving deep into it and talking about it is necessary. In basketball, 82, even with me doing it weekly, that's 3 or 4 games. It's somewhat sense of urgency, and you have an overarching picture. For baseball, like really after looking at the pitching matchup of that day and seeing what guys are hitting, it's hard to consistently keep up, the urgency around baseball. Sometimes you lose on a fluke play and it's like, that's just baseball. But I do like it. Obviously, football and basketball are my bread and butter, and that's what I stick to. But I am also looking into a guy, an acquaintance of sorts. I can't say a friend, but an acquaintance who is a huge baseball fan, seeing if he wants to get into the podcast thing and see if we can release that on Q City Media. So keep an eye on, look out for that. But for me personally, no, I won't be doing the Braves. As for the Bulldogs, I am not a Bulldogs fan. I am a huge Hawks fan. I am a huge Falcons fan, and I'm a pretty big Braves fan, but I'm not a Bulldogs fan. And so I felt like it would just be disingenuous of me, just because they are having an amazing season, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be national championships, going to the national championship. And we'll see what happens. But I'm not a Bulldog fan, so I didn't see it being genuine, delving deep into them or trying to make a pod about them. Plus, it takes a lot of time to do these 2 pods a week, and I feel like adding, a college team would require a whole nother pod. And like I said, married with 2 kids, very hard to convince my wife that I need to take more time to watch other guys play sports. But overall, I support my Georgia teams. If I was to choose a college team in Georgia that I did like, it would be Georgia State, because that's where I went, and they are in the city of Atlanta, and it fits with the theme of the podcast. But like I said, I wouldn't devote a whole nother podcast to them at this point. If it started paying me like a job, then by all means, I would definitely do another one. But at this point in time, I just follow them. I root from afar, but I wouldn't call myself a fan, especially not enough to do a whole pod about them. And then the last one was OBJ Djax. Well, Deshaun Jackson got signed by Oakland up at this point, so he's off the market. OBJ does not fit into our offensive scheme or play style, and claiming him off waivers is too much money we do not have. As of current, we have under $850,000 in salary cap dollars. Off the top of my head, it might be under $750, but I know for a fact it's under $850 in cap dollars. And it was the reason we traded Julio. Like we can't afford anybody. Like we're paying Matt, we're paying Grady, we're paying Jake Matthews, we're paying Debo. We have a top 5 pick who's making decent money, and then we have a top 15 pick in AJ Terrell that's making money. And then Ridley as well is a top 20 pick making money. So when you in Ridley's in his 3rd year, so his money's about to skyrocket in a bit. There's there's nothing we can do. As for him not fitting into our offense, OBJ actually is a Russell Gage on steroids. Not that he is actually on steroids. That is literally just a figure of speech about how the talent gap is different between him and Russell Gage. But regardless, OBJ is like Russell Gage plus in the sense that he runs sharp, quick routes, can take the top and edge off of defense with timing routes such as slants, sluggos, in breakings. But he doesn't necessarily fit our offense because we only require one of those, or we require it for as in a possession sense from the slot. OBJ does not excel in either of those, and we actually do want to establish the run. So coming here would just be a repeat of Cleveland for him. So I like him. You know, of course, who doesn't love OBJ? He's not a fit in Atlanta. And then money-wise, like, we would have to give him a deferred contract. So basically, if you have $850,000 in salary cap dollars, what you could do, especially with him being converted to base and then clear waivers, you could sign him. You would have to sign him for like 3 years. So you would sign him for like 3 years and say it would have to be like $26 million. And so what you would do would just give him a base salary of whatever is left in your cap. So let's just say 850. So you give him a base of 850 and then give him a signing bonus of like 19 million, which is pretty much damn near guaranteeing the whole contract. And then you spread those across the other 2 years. Ideally, you would want to do it for 4 years. So give him 4 years, $30 million, guaranteed 19 of it, and you prorate basically $10 a year on the last 3 years of the contract. So you've got a phony year. You've got a phony year in the beginning. He gets a lot of his money up front. But like Odell's not signing 4 years for 30 mil. Like he's not doing that. But that's pretty much the only way you could do it. He doesn't fit, but he's a great talent. That's about it for me. I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. Follow me again on QCity11, Instagram, Twitter. QCity Media is gonna be up on YouTube by the end of this week. And appreciate all that you guys do. I'm on Apple now, so please rate and review me. I'm on Spotify as well. The Anchor app. I really appreciate you guys helping me with this. I've received great feedback, fan interaction, allowed me to do, a rapid fire. That's why I'm always saying hit me up. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you listening. Thank you for coming through. Enjoyed the ride with you.
Looking like I hit the lotto. I want a hottie like mulatto. I'm on here and she on Moscato. I'm in them good till tomorrow. I'm a robber for the Neros. Yo, little laws, I'ma put you on payroll. You smell that aroma? Design the air, it's a party, yeah. Papa Corona, she moving the body, she working them heels. Gotta go get it mentality. Grocery bag full of celery. Only believe half what you telling me. Keep a 20 on me, case emergency. I wake up early every morning. Thank the Lord and get the bag. Hustle hard, get the cash. Stack first, then I'm showing my ass. Gotta go get it mentality. Grocery bag full of celery. Only believe half what you telling me. Keep a 20 on me, case emergency.
My babies, that's who I grind for. That's who I do it for. Like the Navy, that's who I'm toting that iron for. Keep one in the head like a thought, nigga. Yeah, I fuck with Ty, he a boss, nigga. Foot on their neck, I exhaust, nigga. Niggas cross me, so I cross, nigga. No stripper was lit last night. 500, what it cost, nigga. Shit was really legit last night. Had them hoes at the house, nigga. Instagram, Snapchat, Triller. What they say about Jay, he a go-getter. Used to have them fat sacks in the grove, nigga. Late nights, early morning, my dough, nigga.
You smell that aroma? Design the air, it's a party, yeah. Papa Corona, she moving the body, she working them heels. Gotta go get it mentality. Grocery bag full of celery. Only believe half what you telling me. Keep a 20